Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Thought Leaders. Today we've got Daniel, who is the CCO of SetSchedule, or the Chief Client Officer over there. Had a little switch of plans. We've had Roy that was originally scheduled, but we've spoken to Roy on a few different occasions from our podcast in the first season, I believe, and then he's also done our Founders Roundtable in Irvine. So we already have quite a bit of extensive background on him, so we're happy to be sharing the time today with Daniel. Thanks so
Well,
much.
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. And hopefully I could bring a different perspective than what Roy
Yeah,
has brought in the past.
absolutely. So tell us a little bit more, like for those that aren't familiar with SetSchedule, what you guys do and who you guys work with.
Awesome. So for those of you who aren't familiar, SetSchedule is basically a technology-based company, and we create and develop business development tools for real estate professionals. So our most attractive tool is what we call the networking platform, which is very similar to like your LinkedIn, but specifically for real estate professionals. So real estate agents, mortgage officers, loan officers, contractors, developers, and you name it, right? We even have website developers mainly who work with real estate and real estate agents as well. So we create, like I said, business development tools, and the core of the tool and the application is to find new connections and collaborate with other professionals that you wouldn't have had otherwise. For example, real estate agent either needs a new loan officer or mortgage officer, or wants to, help one of their clients invest in building their kitchen out or remodeling. They might come to SetSchedule, find a contractor, network with them, and ultimately collaborate on that opportunity, right? So that agent can actually get 3 or 4 different contractors just from promoting themselves, or as we call it, asking for network and connection. So we are in the business of connecting real estate professionals, and the platform is free, which is phenomenal because it allows people to engage and connect and collaborate. And we offer ancillary tools, and we're going to get into a lot of nurturing and marketing tools coming in the next 3 months, which will absolutely expand the tech stack that we're going to be offering, not just to real estate agents, but to all real estate professionals coming up in the next 3 months.
Got it. And how old is the company?
So we've been around since 2015, 2016-ish. I joined probably, I'd like to say, I'm the third employee, the fourth employee. I joined on day 3. I was still actually studying college. I was studying biology in college at that point when I was introduced to one of the senior partners, Udi, who was a friend of mine prior to me having joined. And he introduced me to the idea, said, "Hey, I know that you're not totally in love with school, and maybe there's a business opportunity for us to work together." And I said, "Sure, I'll give it a shot." And I interned with Udi and Roy, with SetSchedule, I should say, for about 6 months, where I was actually scheduling appointments for Udi to go out and make the sales. And little by little, that led me to becoming the first inside sales rep, first management VP of business operations, ultimately to the chief client officer that I am. So I've been with the company close to about 10 years now, and the company's been around 10 years and 1 month, let's say, for example. But yeah, I've been there from the start.
Got it. Very cool. So tell us a little bit about your background. I know you said you're still in school at the time when you first started off with
Yeah.
them, but you did have a little bit of other background before that. What brought you or made you curious about working in this type of an environment specifically? Obviously, you're forgoing, maybe, well, you're taking a bit of risk on, and you're forgoing a little bit more stability in another traditional sense where there might be a um, uh, path to kind of like level up your career versus this is kind of like learning on the go, and then
Yeah.
hopefully the company grows and you're able to grow with the company. So what kind of brought that to you?
Great question. It was kind of me just being unaware and unknown of what I wanted to do. I mean, I was in college, and a lot of it has to do with, the kind of the expectations that you're put on you as a kid. And growing up, had told me I was going to be one in the tech space and two in the real estate part of the tech space, I would have laughed at you and said, "No way, that's absolutely crazy," right? I had the set on becoming a doctor. I was, my goal was to go to medical school and all that. And it just going through college, it just wasn't something that I was excited and passionate about. And again, it was more kind of like an opportunity. It's like while I was there, I was studying. I loved, working with computers. I was always into, fixing the computers of my family, and built my first computer at around 17 years old. So at that point, tech and computer and more hardware than anything was kind of my passion and my love. And when we first started the company, with zero sales experience, it was something that really brought me out of my comfort zone. Being what I consider an introvert, wanting to have the time and like the rejuvenation and kind of getting excited wasn't something that was there for me initially with sales. But I think it's something that I really grew into as I started to learn and spend the time in the sales process. And what was awesome was it allowed me to kind of take the engineering side of my brain and put it into the sales aspects. For example, our CRM system, building our pipeline, the automations, the email automations, all of that are things that, because I was in sales and because I was the person who was making the phone calls and doing the cold calling and scheduling the appointments and doing the pitch deck, it allowed me to figure out how I can automate and build efficiencies around the sales process, which is something that the team had the sales process, but didn't have the efficiency aspect of it. So it allowed me to really bring my strength and mirror it with the sales process that I didn't love at the time, but came to found a real passion and excitement for, especially when it comes to the client side of things, and we could talk about that. It allowed me to mesh the two once I spent that 6 months interning, learning the sales pipeline, understanding the emails and the asks and the click-through actions, and what is it, how do you formulate an email for it to be the click-through rates and all that, and the response rates, right? Taking that data, mirroring it with a action based on the engineering side of things that I really love to do. So it's kind of something I fell into, but it's something I very, very quickly realized was something I wanted to do. And the more I do it, the more I realize how much I actually enjoy sitting here, looking at the data and improving all the the efficiencies when it comes to the business development side of SetSchedule.
Yeah. For those that are, in college right now and unsure about their path, right? I think like college can be a great place for that, of like self-discovery. I think
Mm-hmm.
obviously if you are somebody that kind of has conviction with where you want to go directionally, like college may not necessarily be a prerequisite for something. But I think for a lot of kids, it does make sense to use that as an exploratory place. That being said, what do you think that, I know you mentioned there you had this very different career trajectory of like possibly becoming a doctor and then kind of like taking a 180 down this path instead. What was it about like, what was that, I guess, like conviction for change in you? Meaning that, you at what point did you realize like the path of becoming a doctor just wasn't interesting for you? And that this is like,
Yeah.
because it's still, even though you start as an internship and like I'm sure even like the first 2 to 3 years, it was still very probably chaotic and
Mm-hmm.
a lot's being asked of you. So it's like almost, increasing the amount of responsibility, but also at the same time, like not seeing the reward directly related to that. So I think it has to be for anybody who is working in a startup, whether you're a founder or one of the early employees, there's got to be a different thing in your DNA that's kind of compelling you to do this,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And so what would you describe that experience to? Maybe like comparing it to other friends of yours that took maybe more of a traditional route, and how you would say your personality, traits that kind of like differentiated made you go down this path. The reason why I ask is because there might be other students right now on the fence and
Mm-hmm.
they might be feeling something and they might be able to resonate with your story and be like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. That's where I should try pursue something different.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I actually think college is phenomenal. I think college for most individuals, for most people, is the path to go to. For me, I was never, growing up, I wasn't a student, well, a good student. I mean, what I was passionate about, I did really well. I was the first person in my town in Paramus, New Jersey, is actually where I was born and raised, to get my EMT license at 17 years old. And it was something that I was extremely passionate about. But that was just something I wanted to do. So I very quickly learned that if it's not something that I want to do, no matter who pushes me, it's not going to happen, right? And that's most people. Not to say that I'm any different. I think what differentiated me was the grind. I didn't realize how much I like getting into how much pushback I like getting and being told no, I can't do something,
Mm,
or being put in a position where it's so chaotic and finding sense of calmness, which allows me to take all that chaos and kind of organize it. And that's what I excelled in really well. I very quickly realized that putting a book in front of me and having me sit there and study that book is not going to be how I'm going to learn what it is that I want to learn. And it's more of being hands-on. Again, I wasn't a great student growing up. I technically flunked out of college even at that point, if you wanted to talk about it. But I studied biology, then studied computer science, and that's where I really think I found the passion for, learning. And the one thing my mom always told me was like, you got to go to college because it's going to work and it's going to put you in a position where you are learning to study. And I think that's so important. Learning how you are able to study and the way that allows you to be able to kind of pick up information, knowledge, learn it, and implement it is something that college absolutely teaches majority of students. It just didn't work for me. And I needed that hands-on, and that's why SetSchedule worked, because the team could take me, Roy could take me, throw me with the script and say, go figure it out, right? And at the time, we didn't even really have a full script. And at the time, it was like, let's try 5 different scripts and see which works, and get back to me, and let's see how many appointments we were able to schedule. And from there, we'll improve that script, right? And that's really what it was. Again, and in today's day and age, with how easy it is to go to college, I think you can absolutely do both. You can work through college and start to come up with ideas, because there are a lot of people who are probably doing it far better than I am, Chris. When it comes to how do I manage that, you could probably get better advice from somebody else than me. But the entrepreneurship, that grind, that sense of relentlessness, no matter how difficult it is, the objective is that's put in front of you, was something that I really quickly learned about myself through SetSchedule that I absolutely loved. It was a fire that built in me that was like, if I'm told no, I'm here to prove you wrong. And I think that is something, if you have that passion, if you have that fire, that is regardless of if it's school or not, that is something that if you carry that sense, building something for yourself is something that I think will actually be far more impactful than going to, have a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. I mean, I bring it, so that soft skill, that fire inside of you, right? I think like that's something that a lot of founders look for when they're trying to hire their first few employees. And it's one of the hardest things to find, right? Because it's not one of those trainable skill sets. It's
Yeah,
got to be something that you discover within somebody.
yeah.
Um, as you guys have grown, I'm sure you guys have continued to look for those types of individuals, because
Hmm.
I'm sure the earlier companies like you're basically trying to maximize output,
Right, right.
individual, but it has to have somebody that takes ownership over what they're doing, has pride in what they're doing and not just clocking in, clocking out situation. What about, have you guys found a way to, or like, to kind of like, uh, field those types of individuals out for your organization? Are there certain questions? What's the culture like? How do you create an environment that fosters those kinds, or attracts those kinds of personality types?
That's a great question. I think for me, what I find is if an individual has a goal in mind and they know what it is that they're looking to achieve, that is usually an indicator that allows you to kind of identify someone who is willing to put in the work. And that's because they've spent the time to understand where they want to be, and now they might not know how to get there, and that's where you come into place, right? As a leader, as a manager, as an executive of a company. I think through the 4 or 5 years of me spending and training, you start to identify the people who are willing to put in the work. A lot of the environment that we create is a work hard, play harder kind of environment, where we have something where we call in Sell Week. The first week of training is nothing but just book training, where we teach you scripts and we teach you sales techniques and ABC and AIDA and all that fun stuff. But the second week is Sell Week, and that Sell Week is the expectation of, I'm going to drive you 100%. I'm going to make sure that all the 7 hours that you're working, you've got 4 hours of call time, you've got 500 emails sent out, you're setting out your 500 text messages for the day. There's very clear KPIs that we present our newer employees or team members, where we know that if they're going to put in that work and they hit those numbers, they're going to very quickly excel, because they're not afraid of the outbound. They're not afraid, obviously, in a sales position, they're not afraid of the emails. They're not afraid of getting the no's because they know it's going to take 50 no's to get to that one yes, right? For example, we also are very clear as far as the expectations. You're going to have to talk to 100 people a day. From those 100 people, 50 of them are going to even willing to converse with you. Of those 50, 25 are going to say, hey, man, don't even bother talking to me. Leave me alone. 25 are going to be willing to have a positive engagement. Of those 25, you're going to schedule, you know, 15, 16 of them, of those 15. So we have a very clear indication of the sales funnel. And that is something we make sure we express because I want everybody to know what they're going to get themselves into. After you've done that as a manager, now it's on that person to prove to you, to show you that they're willing to put in that work. And generally speaking, after the second week, third week, and fourth week, because we push so hard initially, and the idea behind it, Chris, is like if I put you at 100% now, guess what? 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, 70% is going to be a walk in the park, right? And we very quickly identify that. I personally, one exercise that I do is I have my team every time that I do training is I say, I want you to sit down and I want you to put a list of 10 goals down. And I learned this from it was a YouTube video. I don't remember who it was. And he says if they're not willing, if your team's not willing to do this, don't work with them. And it very quickly became something that I do consistently with everyone. List of 10 goals. From those 10 goals, I want you to prioritize it in A, B, and C. A being something that if you were to complete this, it's drastically going to improve your life. Now, if take one of those, and if that were to happen today, how would that improve your life? That's the one idea that's the goal that we're actually going to focus on. And that's the goal. If someone can sit there and go through this kind of process and really clearly identify for themselves what they want to accomplish, that's usually, again, like I said, an indicator that it's someone that it's worth your time investing your energy and has a little bit of enough of a fire for you to throw in a catalyst of the gasoline or whatever it is you want to call it to really ignite it. And those are the ones that generally after your third month, your 6th month, and a year from now, you're celebrating their anniversary with them. So it's a lot. Everybody has their own style, and everybody has their own kind of like, I guess, way of identifying that. But because I enjoy working with people, for me, helping them identify how to get to their goal has been what's allowed me to determine whether that person is going to put in the effort to kind of, really fight for what they want versus I'm just here. I'm hoping that I survive 3 months and I'm not going to take the bull by the horn and really ride my own life. And I'm just going to see what happens. You get those, but that's not, like you said, those aren't the people that you want when you're, starting a company or you're starting to build a team.
Yeah. Curious because you guys are, almost 10 years old now, or a little bit over 10 years old. I'm sure you've seen different cycles, specifically as being a software company, right, of sorts, and
Mhm.
uh, and a marketplace. But um, how has the go-to market or the sales landscape evolved in the past few years, and then going until today? And what do you imagine it to look like in the near future? Because I think I think we saw, especially with SaaS, go from this very like large boom period from 2010, 2012 to 2023,
Right.
basically this time last year, maybe a little bit earlier last year. I think the SVB situation, even though it may not have like a direct correlation to some of the slowdown, it definitely, I think, was an awakening for a lot of people that we're
Mhm.
not in the same place anymore. And obviously with interest rates and cost of capital being a lot higher, like it's definitely slowed down, I think, growth, and for a lot of different types of companies. I think people are more conscientious with how they're spending their money,
Absolutely.
and much more aware about that. So how has that affected you guys on the go-to-market side of things, if at all? And how are you thinking about things differently, if at all?
Yeah. It would be difficult for me to speak to the financial side of things because I'm not very much involved in that. Where I am involved in is a lot of the post conversation of, we've got the finances, how do we work it? I do understand that this market actually has been very difficult, especially last year and the year prior, regardless of what industry you were in. A lot of businesses had a very sticky point around, like you said, the financial investment and where they're investing it. Um, but on the same side, I think the technology and the advancement of technology, specifically around AI, has allowed um, tools it has allowed tools that for newer entrepreneurs to really blossom. Like you said, in the past conversation, we talked about someone who might have that fire. If you have that fire and you find the tools, it's far easier as an individual or as a smaller business to write your emails, to find ways of spending ads, to be effective around the marketing spend, to grow and to build your user base, right? I mean, there's so much information out there. I mean, for example, we probably for about 6 months try to test and work on a lot of outbound marketing emails. And yes, we used all the chat GPT and all this, but what we fail to realize, it's the platform in which you're utilizing to is very important. For example, they recommended, and we realized this off of a video that we watched, the recommendation was that you warm up the domains that you're working. And the domain shouldn't be which we have our actual SetSchedule domain is setschedule.com, right? And we went and we created 3 more domains, and we put it into a system that was specifically meant for warming up the domains. And they even provided you with the subject and the content that you need to have. And that just came from a video. And all of a sudden, after we did it well and we did it correctly, we 10x our volume of lead generation, just because we watched the video that trained us and taught us how to correctly, work the email outbound emailing. And for me, as an executive who works right under our CEO, who has so much, innovative ideas, it's my responsibility to take these and see which ones are actually, if we should test to go to market. But why should I test to go to market when you've got 15 other people who've probably done the same exact thing and had the same idea that we had? Look it up, do your research, chat GPT questions, spend the time to understand what other people have been doing before you actually go out and try to do it yourself. Because again, someone will give you information that you didn't have previously, right? So financially speaking, once you receive it and you have, it's so much easier to test before going to market. Because again, there's so much information out there, and you just have to sit there and read and understand. I'll give you something else, Chris. I know that a lot of these like entrepreneurial gurus have come out quite a bit in the past. There are a lot of people who are giving some really good information. And I think that if you find 1 or 2 or 3 relevant content creators for sales, for marketing, for customer support, for data and analysis, you will very quickly realize that you could do a lot of it on your own as an entrepreneur. You don't have to rely on, SEO companies and blog writers. I mean, you could do it all if you spend the time to actually learn how to input, to give the systems the proper input to get the output that you want.
Got it. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So basically you're saying that a lot of these tools have helped you guys be more efficient, but there hasn't been like any major changes in terms of what you guys are doing nowadays versus like a few years ago.
I mean, no, we've recently, yes and no. So, we still have the the basic business development where, we have the referral radar, which is one thing that we've offered. But what we're looking to do is, because of kind of the way sales has evolved, people are not necessarily looking for leads anymore. To talk specifically about SetSchedule, for example, and maybe that's where we're going, as a lead aggregation tool, the referral radar, where we aggregate leads from many different lead vendors, we've come to realize that as much as real estate agents need the lead, they need their handheld in the post lead acquisition, which is the nurturing, which is the marketing, which is the emails, the cadence, the SMSing. And that's why we have the verified leads, and we have the concierge handshakes, and we have the set hello video audio conferencing opportunities. But we came to identify that it's not enough. I mean, salesmen crave the nurturing aspect of, I have 100 leads, I just don't know what to do with them, right? So we are starting to implement nurturing tools and landing pages for, click to email or click to call. So that can be used in the Google ads. It can be used in your outbound marketing, can be used as part of a landing page, which allows you to intake the prospect's information to start the email cadencing and the SMS cadencing. So we're starting to take what worked for us, which was the top of the funnel, which is the lead generation. And we're starting to add tools and layer tools into it, which is going to ultimately help us help our users work the leads further down into the pipeline until they get the yes. And I guess to your point, now that we're talking about and thinking about it, yeah, absolutely. We've spent a lot of time changing and evolving the tools and the tech stack from just the let's be a lead aggregation company that provides hundreds of leads to real estate agents throughout the year to let's actually sit down and understand what is it that agents need so we can help them get their leads lower down the pipeline rather than just, hey, here's all the information, good luck, go deal with it.
Yeah. Well, we're rounding up on time here, but I would love to kind of pick your brain around, what's the current priority for SetSchedule, from, either go-to-market side of things or from a product perspective,
Mhm.
and how you guys are serving your customers, and what do you imagine to be maybe like the biggest 1 or 2 points that you guys see on the horizon that you might be really excited about, that you might be launching in the next, in the near future, like the next 6 months or a year or so from now.
We're looking to totally revamp and rebrand the way that we present our technology. There's like I said, there's so much tech that we offer, and we as a company need to do a better job training our users on how to utilize all this tech. So what we're going to be doing is in the next couple months, we're going to be working on offering tools to the target market outside of just real estate agents. Like I said, marketing, branding, and tool technology and nurturing technology when it comes to individuals as well as teams. Being able to find different professionals and being able to find, a missing piece of the puzzle where it comes to, contractors, developers, or like we said, any other professional, you're going to be able to, through the SetSchedule platform, not only brand yourself, but also be able to take that branding and utilize it on every single aspect of your business to ultimately streamline all of your marketing needs into one location and one, profile, and one platform. And that for us over the course of probably the next 6 months is going to be our goal, is to really make the SetSchedule platform, the SetSchedule profile, whether it's an individual agent, a team, or a contractor developer, all those other professionals that we talked about, loan officer, mortgage brokers, to make SetSchedule the go-to when it comes to lead generation, lead nurturing, brand marketing, and everything in between.
Got it. Very cool. On that note, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time today, and pulling an audible and stepping in for Roy. I think it was a great perspective, and I think we learned a little bit different, I think, view in terms of like what you guys are doing and then how you're doing it. So thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Hopefully next time if we do this, I'll have a little bit more time to prep for this and not spitball off the top of my head, but I really appreciate your time, Chris. Thank you.
That was perfect. That was great. Thank you.